Okay, going beyond the ego today is what this is all about. Going beyond the ego. Oh my goodness, isn't that something we all need to either learn how to do or bring some awareness to? So, we're all born egoless. Nobody in this whole world was born with an ego. We're born balanced, we're born in pure light, love, and then life happens, right? We experience life. We have our own different dramas, we have our own sufferings and our own upsets, right? There's stress that we all experience in our life, yeah, right from young children all the way up to adulthood and today, right? We have wounds. We all do. We have our own personal stories. And so in that life experience, we created an ego. We all do. It's life experience. It's life. It's the human experience. And so in that, we have a personality. We all do. And the ego is really well-meaning. It is developed to protect us, to keep us safe. So it's not a bad thing, but it is a thing, and we all have an ego. But we want to get beyond our ego, and we want to bring awareness to our ego and get beyond it. Why? So that we can create the life that we really want, so we can get out of stress and we can get out of our suffering and our traumas and get out of our stories so that we can create the life that we really, really want. And so we want to create balance. We want to find balance. And in order to find balance back in our life in any situation, we have to learn how to go beyond our own ego. So everything that happens outside of us is also happening within us. And how we react to life, how we react to all situations in our life, it always comes down to it comes down to our ego and how much we're invested in our ego. So, how do we get beyond our ego? And according to Ayurveda, working with the five elements helps to shift us back into balance. It helps us to shift back into alignment with what it is we want to create, how it is we want to feel, what it is that we want to accomplish in this world, or what our soul came here to accomplish in our world. So, what are the five elements? We've got space, we've got air, we have fire, we have water, and we have earth. Those are the five elements in all around us, right? And it's also within all of us. And when we can find balance or tune into these five elements, we can find balance in our body, in our mind, in our life. And that is the ticket to going beyond the ego. So the ego only sees life as it is and the traumas that we're going through and the stress as it is. So I'm asking us all, in order to get beyond the ego, you have to see beyond that. You have to see beyond the reality you're currently living in your life. And so it calls for being willing to go to different places. Now, I love working with the moon. I love working with the elements, and it takes us into that, let's say, woohoo world. But the ego has to get beyond, oh, that's just crazy. Or what do you mean working with the moon, working with the energy of the moon or the elements, the mind? And you know what? I do this stuff on a regular basis. I have a regular practice. I have, my mind is all over all of this stuff. I love working with, the elements and the moon, but my ego still has the ability to talk me out of things that I know I should do and talk me into things I know that I shouldn't do. And so it's a constant awareness. It's that ability to go, okay, maybe it does sound a little bit out there, a little bit woohoo, but maybe this is the way I can get beyond the ego. So let's take the element of space, for example, right? Outer space, right, is space, but inside of us, it's the space between our thoughts. It's the space between our, every breath that you take. It's the space, within between all of our organs. Now, if we can physically clear our space around us, so think of a room that's like got so much stuff in it you can't even move, right? If you clear out that space and now all of a sudden you have an empty room, there's pure potential. There's potential to create anything and do anything in that room. Well, it's the same thing in our own head. If our head is just full of all of these thoughts, it's all caught up in the ego, all caught up in our wounds and our stresses. Well, it's just like that room that's full of stuff. There's nothing, there's no space to get new stuff in, new thoughts, new beliefs, new ways of being. So we have to clear out our physical space, but we also have to clear out our mental space. So you have to be open your mind, open your thoughts to maybe a new way of seeing things. Okay, so think of that space, right? Then there's air. Okay, so air is change and being willing to move and change, and our thoughts, really look at our thoughts can go all over our head. The ego has thoughts here, there, negative, fearful, all over the place. We can get caught up in our own thoughts. So when we work with the air element, it's a matter of moving and changing and being able to go with that. Know that our mind goes all over the place. Being able to accept change, being able to change our beliefs, being able to change our thoughts, right? Going beyond the ego and the ego thoughts and fears, the ego's limiting beliefs, the ego's stories that have been created from our wounds. Okay, so when we can tap into to the air element, we can find balance. And then there's fire, the fire in our belly, right? This is like the get up and the go, and this is what gives us, action to do and go towards our dreams, unless, the ego has us stuck in fear, right? So to go beyond the ego with the fire element means tuning into, like, what did your soul come here to do? What did your soul come here to experience? Right? And then we can tap into our gut instincts and our intuition and be willing to do things differently. And, again, tap into what you're passionate about and what you're enthusiastic about, what you're desiring. But you got to get beyond the ego and the ego's fears and the ego's, the ego keeps us stuck quite often. So when true transformation with, fire is transformation, we have to get beyond the ego and really tune back into what our soul came here to experience. And then there's the element of water. And this is where our ego gets really stuck, right? Water is about flow. Water is about, letting our emotions flow, letting ourselves feel our emotions and to flow through that. But if we're stuck in the fear, we're stuck in the ego, we're stuck in our wounds, we're stuck in our personal stories, there's no flow. There's no flow. And we need water, right? This is this is our creative forces. If we get beyond the ego and we get back, everything that keeps us stuck, we then tune into the flow. Like water. Water is so very powerful when it's flowing. Yes, we don't want to get stuck. So this is our ability to let go of what no longer serves us. It's our ability to feel our emotions and get past our emotions so we don't get stuck in our stress and our wounds and our stories and our ego. We get beyond the ego. Okay, because when the water builds up, what does it create? It creates a real dam, right? And everything, nothing's flowing. So that's why we want to flow into we want to tap into and tune into the element of water and flow. And the last element is earth. Okay, so this is our physical being, right? When you think outside, we've got the mountains and we got the trees and we got the earth, but inside of our own bodies we have, our bones and our muscles and our ligaments and our tendons. So it's our physical body here in this physical earth. This, when we tap into the element of it, as far as going beyond the ego, is about protection and structure and routines. So this is getting beyond the physical body, but being able to take care of our physical body. This is how we live our life. This is the choices that we make every day. What have we manifested so far in our life? Has it been pretty good what you've manifested, or has it not been so good? Is it time to get beyond the ego and start, looking at things a little bit differently and doing things differently? This is all in our willingness and how we live our life. Be willing to change. Be willing to change our beliefs. Be willing to clear out our space. Be willing to, make some choices to help to get out of the stresses in our life. Be willing to work with the moon and bring in some meditation and some mindfulness into your life so that you can see beyond the ego, you can get beyond the ego, you can get beyond the fears. And so just again, you can get beyond by bringing in certain practices into your life. Okay, so that's what this week is all about, is going beyond the ego and tapping into more of our soul space and go beyond. Let's just tap this in. Go beyond those ego fears and be able to see life differently. So even just doing something like this, right? Like I start bouncing. It's like, what is this tap in? What is this moving the body? Why do I want to move this body? Because this is what gets us beyond the ego. Bounce. You get into the body. You start to feel the body. The body starts to move. You're starting to access this earth element of our body and to get energy flowing. So we get energy flowing. We get water flowing. Maybe emotions come up. How about shaking things out a little bit? Right? The water element, we want things to flow. We want movement to flow. We want our body to flow. And then just march things out. And then bring the knee up and tap into the other side. So when I say this is a great energy movement, like this gets our communication moving between our right and our left side. Where does your mind go? It's like, that sounds silly. That sounds ridiculous. But it's not. When we work with our energy and when you get beyond the ego and you go, wow, this really does. I feel better. I feel like I can actually move through my day. So you got to tap into these places, these elements, the mind, get beyond the ego. Okay, and then let's tap into our body. Let's get into that physical body. And then tap down one leg, go all the way down to the feet, really ground and anchor yourself. Come into your body. How does your body feel? How do you feel? How do you want to feel today? We have choices. We can choose how we are going to feel today. But you got to go beyond the ego, because the ego gets stuck in the wounds and the ego gets stuck in, only what it can see. So you can even cross your energy from one shoulder to the other. Okay, rub your hands together and we're going to do our 4 thumps here. Okay, now tapping underneath the eyes is tapping into that earth element. It allows you to just ground, come out of the ego. I want to get beyond the ego and the ego fears and everything my ego can see right now. And just ground and anchor. Come out of the stress. Go beyond the ego here, the earth element. Just tune in to the body. Then when we tap here, the collarbone area. This is our kidney meridian, but this is our water element. We can just tap in, get things flowing in the right direction. Remember how powerful water is when it's flowing, and when it flows in the right direction, it is very powerful. So tap in, and you can tap in here and go, okay, how do I want to feel today? How I want things to flow. So how do I want to feel today? So you just tap into that water element here. Take a nice deep breath. And then we're going to come into our thymus. We're going to tap into our thymus. And this is the element of air. So this is where we can tap in. Okay, what are my thoughts, right? I got to get beyond the ego. If these thoughts do not feel good, why am I keeping them? I want to get beyond the ego. I want to see beyond the ego. I want to think beyond the ego. I want to feel beyond the ego. I want to do things beyond the ego. I don't want the ego to keep me stuck in fear. I don't want the ego to keep me stuck in my wounds and my stories. I want to get beyond it. So bring in the air element. What is the air element? The willingness to change and to change our beliefs and to move and to create change in our life. So that's tapping in to the air element. Okay, and then we got here our metabolism, our spleen meridian. This is our fire element, because fire element is all that fire in the belly, metabolize our thoughts, metabolize our food, metabolize everything. Bring the fire into the belly here. And instead of getting all stuck in the fears of the ego, get beyond the ego. What did your soul come here to do? Get beyond that, make different choices, do things differently. Okay, and then just again, rub your hands together and shake it off. And then beyond all four of those elements is space. So right here, space. First thing you do, clear your space around you physically, clear the space in your head, and be willing to open up to new way of thinking and seeing things and doing things and speaking and listening to others. Get beyond the ego. Okay, so getting beyond the ego is about bringing balance